Okay guys, this is going to be installment number 3 on the BeeHive, and today I'm going to work on the inner cover. Now they show kind of a rabbited type of joint. It's almost dadoed in. Brain fart. Anyhow, this can be done many ways. The main thing is they want your stock to be 5/8 inch. Well, forget that. Just use your regular 1x material, but you are going to have to rip it down to about 3/4 of an inch, and you're going to have to get some 1/4 inch plywood or some lawn to make this. And I'm not exactly sure what method I'm going to use, so I'm going to start working on it, and when I figure it out, then I'm going to come back and I'll show you kind of how I'm going to do it. So we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so far what they was wanting is to rip the boards down to a 3/4 inch thickness. Now guys, this ain't very thick. This can be done 101 different ways, and like I said, I'm experimenting because I want to try to find the easiest way for everybody else to be able to do it. And honestly, what I think is the board that I had ripped down, the 1x12, and part of the leftover piece, this would make an excellent inner cover. It's a nice width, and there's not a whole lot you have to do to it. The measurements on it would be pretty much the same as the box as far as 16 1/4 across the front, and then you would have to figure out your takeaway for the sides. Basically, yeah, I'll show you in a minute. But anyhow, it can be done with that, and then what you would do would be put it on your router or your table saw, and you'd run a small dado in there to basically inset your plywood on. You could glue and tack your plywood down or staple it down in the corners, and once you glued it and stapled it, after you had your frame together, of course glued and screwed it, that'd be a solid frame for the top, and it would really work. So I'm going to do it both ways because I'm building several hives, and we'll just see what we like best. So the first frame I'm going to do is kind of what they show in the book, and pretty much what they're doing, get that in the camera, okay, is they're taking their pieces, and what you can either use a 1/4 inch bit on your router, which would be perfect to run you a dado down the wood. What I'm doing is using my table saw, and I'm going to offset my fence just a little bit off center of this board to get this a 1/4 inch wide. I'm just lifting my blade enough to run about halfway through. So first thing we're going to do is get that to where it's got enough play in it that it'll go over the piece of plywood, and I'm going to run all 4 pieces through, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, for those of you who got a table saw, here's what I'm doing. Guys, you definitely have to have a push dog on this. If not, pretty dang dangerous. But I'm making sure I take the edges I cut on every one of them. I want them all to be the same. I've got my fence set just off center of my board. Okay, so what I'm going to do is basically use my small blade just for a dado. Okay, so here's what I got. It looks like I need to move my fence just a hair bit further out, but this will work. I'll run it back through and clean that centerpiece up, no problem, and I'll show you what we're going to do with it in a minute. Okay, so now that I got my grooves ran in my boards, these two are basically going to have a slot cut on each end. And what I got to do for that one is go ahead and need to use a measurement, or being as I'm doing the thickness of the boards, actually about a 3/4 inch board, the slot needs to be at least that thick, so I'm just going to raise just to that point. Now for this, you need a backer board of some type. Find a piece of scrap that you really ain't going to need, and pretty much what this is going to be is a backer. That way that thing don't kick out on you, and you're going to use it to feed this through to get that 3/4 inch groove. Okay, so I want to use a longer piece because obviously You don't want that close. And I'll be back whenever I get those done. Okay, we got those two ready. Like I say, they're the full length of the full size of the side of the body, 19 7/8 inch. So the next thing I want to do is lower my blade down to where on the table the groove is going to match up right with the edge of this slot. And maybe even just a hair less, because this is going to have a little bit of boat, give to it, and I want these to be good tight joints. So at this point, the thickness, how deep I need to go, and I'm just going to use a piece of scrap to mark that with. And actually, these are the ones we're putting the, I done screwed it up, boys. Son of a, no I didn't do it. No I didn't. Woo. Alright, the two front pieces are going to basically notch into this side piece, okay? So, and actually I ain't going to need to go full 3/4. Okay, so anyhow, I've got the height set. What I'm going to use, we're going to go yay deep on each side. Basically it's going to leave me a tab on the end of each one. It's going to make me a decent little joint here. Now I'm just going to use my guide on this. I'm going to take the fence off, and I'm just going to use the guide on there to whittle away at these, just back and forth until I get that all whittled out, and I'm going to do it on both sides. And I'll show you what it'll leave in just a minute. Okay guys, I'll show you how I got my blade set up and everything. I'm just going to run through the process real quick. Still got to go do that to the other side, but the whole idea of that is to make these tabs for this to set in, okay? And then that's going to leave me enough room in this frame that when I go to slide my piece of 1/4 inch plywood in there, it'll go in there just right. So I'm going to work on finishing that up, and then we'll work on cutting our piece of plywood and go for this, or cutting the center hole, and then do the assembly. Okay guys, so the only thing I've done is I'm just trying to dry fit this to my box. Turns out, yeah, it's perfect. All the measurements are just right. So now all I got to do is cut a piece of the 1/4 inch plywood that will basically slide in and be sandwiched in. I can glue it in to make it a little bit stronger. Because this to me seems like a weak inner cover. So I want to build a different style for sure. But this will work, and I'm not going to waste the time that I've spent on it. So I will finish it out. Okay guys, so here's option number 2. And option number 2, it looks the same. The only difference is I left my boards wide, and instead of cutting the joints for the groove to slide in, I can leave them square with having this big of material, and as long as you got a decent size length drill bit, you can drill, countersink, and screw those together. Now, for the inside of the board, I'm going to use the same method. I'm going to use my table saw, and I'm just going to rip a line, turn my board around, rip a line, and make sure I got a good 1/4 inch groove on the inside of each one of those. Like I said, the other option is a straight bit, if you want. Get that out there. A straight bit for your router, and let's see here. Throw it down. So, you know, you can run right into a 1/4 inch straight bit, mount that in your router, set your fence up to where you're going down the center of each board, just run them all through at the same time. Don't be surprised if it's a real super tight joint. You may have to either sand the edge of your plywood, or you may have to move your fence just a hair and run every board through a second time. Either way, you know, when you get it together and it's snug and you glue it, screw it, and leave it for a little while, it's going to make an awesome top. Now, the other thing I want to get on this, which they've got the center of this marked out, which I came from the outside in, left a mark on center, and from top to bottom, left a mark on center, and come out with my hole they want, which is 1 1/4 by 3½ inches. When you go to drill a pilot hole on that, I screwed up. I was kind of in a hurry, and I used this big old mean nasty getting it to it bit, and on this cheap plywood, on this little one, you're going to rip it out. Okay. Second hole, what I did was I went ahead and got me a paddle bit that's in there right now, and I run it through. There it is. I run it through just till the tip popped through the other side, and I worked out a little bit of the outside material, and then I went from the other side and come back in, and by doing that, it's a lot less rough, so you ain't gonna bust a board out. Just, you know, little tech stuff. I knew that before I started, and I just in a big hurry, so take her slow and easy. Okay guys, so here's frame number 2. I'm putting it together, gluing it. I'm gonna run some screws into it, and I like this better. I mean, it's the same idea, more or less, except for I'm not having to do the finger joints back here, and you know, it's giving me a lot of good surface. I'm able to inset my plywood further into the board. So get this stuff lined up. I got some glue added on. Just need to touch the surfaces here where they're going to meet. The glue's going to suck that in together, so it's going to make a good contact. And really, I mean, I've got it put together, but you can work one piece at a time. I did pretty much pre-drill, and countersink these. Okay, nice and tight. This one's going to give me a little bit of a trouble because it's got a knot I'm going into. There we go. Just snug them down. Don't tighten them too tight. If you do, you're going to split your wood out. I know you can't see all this the way I'm angling it. The camera's too close. I can't get it wide enough. One more screw and then we'll set her down and let you see it. Alright. Now I did put some excess glue on those. Just like I would with silicone or something. Just wipe my finger around the edges of it. Kind of make sure it buries in them cracks. Then I'm going to just take a rag and wipe them off, and we'll work on cutting the center hole out in that in a minute. So basically, that's your inner top cover. It's probably going to be about the end of number 3.